Brad, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Yeah, good. How are you?
Great, very good, very good. Really excited about today's episode. I couldn't help myself. We're just back from our conference in Queenstown and I had to put on our conference punny shirt. For everyone who's watching this on the video, you'll see what we've got going there. It's a Lord of the Rings themed shirt, which I'm very proud of. If you love it, too bad. If you weren't at the conference, you're not getting it. So you better come around next year. But that was your first experience with a lot of our partners. What did you think about networking, seeing our partners for the first time and sort of seeing the Access4 type events that we put on all the time?
Oh, I thought it was amazing. Obviously, having it in Queenstown was an absolute beautiful location.
The location kind of does a lot of the work for us.
Yeah, the location was perfect. The partners were great, had some very good conversations. There's a lot of good opportunity. They got the Better Together story, which was also exciting. There were a lot of excitement created by it, so couldn't have timed it any better.
Yeah, that's it. So there's a whole lot to talk about today around your background, around Access4's acquisition of Channel UC and your integration into our business. But just to begin with, for everyone out there who might not have spoken with you before, what's your background and how did you sort of first get into the IT channel?
Yeah, so I actually originally from South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa, moved to Australia in 2009. And in about 2011, a family friend of ours, they had started a telecommunications business in Australia. And he knew I was looking for a job. And at that time, it was just a tiny little shed, basically. And they sent me over a whole bunch of product to try and flog into the Australian market. And he sent me over back to South Africa for 6 weeks of crash course training. And gave me the yellow pages, and I started dialing from PABX all the way down to telephone systems, cold calling all of the different types of partners that you would have under that that type of telephone book, and that's how I got into it.
Cool. So when you first started that business, it didn't start as Mia Distribution, is that right? It started as something else?
Yeah, so we were PABX Warehouse at that time. So the business they had in South Africa was a telephone distribution business. And so PABX peripherals were quite sought after around what they were doing. So we started a very similar thing here. The difference was we didn't have the phone systems to go with all the phone system accessories.
So you're called PBX Warehouse without actually selling PBX systems.
Correct. Yeah. So it was a bit of a tricky sales cycle because we had no PABXs. But we had a lot of fun starting it and getting into it. And how we in 2013 we got our first distribution of a product called Gigaset, which is a cordless telephone. And from that was also at the transition towards VoIP, and they had one of the first IP cordless phones. And so from there we started to get into a lot of the telcos, your TPGs, your MyNet phones, Symbios, those types. And that's how our business slowly started to move from a sort of an accessory type distributor into a telephony type distributor. And then in 2014, Matt, he joined us. Matt Milne, my brother, and we started the Mia Distribution name as a pure distribution type business. And from there we grew into a distribution house.
Yeah, cool. So you went from PBX Warehouse to Mia. So Mia's a very unique name. How did you come up with that one?
The parent company in South Africa were called Mia too.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we adopted their name. And so we just sort of inherited that name and then put the distribution spin at the end of it.
Cool. So who were you targeting in those early days? It was working with resellers and telcos, or mainly on the telco side?
Yeah, a bit of both. So we had the telco partners that we supplied all the IP phones to from the cordless telephony background. Then as we started growing into the distribution space, we started to pick up a lot of your traditional phone system installers that were moving from a Samsung or a Pano or an NEC to a hosted phone system. At that stage, we had another distribution vendor called Yealink, and they had just started in the Australian market. And so a lot of people moving to a hosted phone system would adopt the Yealink phone because it was one of the first ones in the country from an IP telephony point. and that kick-started our distribution
Yep.
journey, really.
Yep, cool. And then it was over more than half a decade you grew that business to a pretty significant size.
Yeah. So yeah, it took us the journey was sort of 2014 to 2015. We were working with the South African business. 2019, Matt and I bought that business from the South African entity. And then in 2020, COVID hit.
Yep.
And it was a pretty big shock to the system, having just, excuse me, bought our first business and having a bit of debt and trying to figure out how we're going to run this business with COVID.
Yep.
It turned out to be it turned out to be very good for the telco industry as everyone moved to home. And so the transition wasn't too bad. And over that sort of 3-year journey from 2019 to 2022, we grew it from just under 10 million to a $40 million business.
Wow.
And then we, in 2022, we decided we would exit the distribution space.
Yep.
And we sold it to a company called Blue Chip IT.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's a lot of growth in that time. So the market dynamics due to COVID was what sort of put a lot of fire under that.
Huge amount, yeah.
Is that right? Because I know like a lot of our MSP partners, they talk about the transition to the cloud during COVID, and that was really accelerated. But you guys were distributing hardware.
Yeah.
So you sort of saw as people moved to home or moved to a more hybrid sort of environment, that also aligned with the greater distribution of hardware as well, as people were taking it back to their homes.
Yeah, that's right. So what happened is in 2019, we also picked up distribution of Jabra
Yep. Okay.
headsets, Ribbon, Lenovo, and there was one other Combox. So we picked up 4 other distributions in that year.
Yep.
And then when COVID hit, particularly Yealink and Jabra went through the roof in terms of demand as everyone moved home.
Was that mainly headsets?
Mainly headsets, yeah. So at one stage we had, I think it was just shy of 2.6 million headsets on back order.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you think about the population size of Australia, it's 10% of the Australian population waiting for a headset from us. But if you think about it from a workforce point of view, it's probably closer to 30% of the population waiting for a headset. So.
Yeah. God, so who were the big players at that time? You mentioned Yealink, Jabra, and so on. Like, were they the biggest players going into COVID and kind of rode that wave as well?
Yeah. I suppose there were other ones that we were really after, like your Logitech, your Polycom, which we didn't have direct distribution for.
Yep.
So those were the other 2 big players. But at that stage, supply chain and logistics was such a nightmare. You basically just bought whatever you could, and people would buy whatever you had in stock because getting it was so difficult.
Okay.
So whoever had stock was king. So we would, as soon as there was however many quantity of something in the warehouse in Xiamen, China, or wherever we were buying from, we would just buy it, and put it in the warehouse, and it would sell. So it was a good time of not having to hold stock for a long period of time. Buying, and it was just flying out the shelf.
Wow. Okay. So the business model of a distribution business, for those who maybe are not so familiar with it, could you talk about it a bit? Because it's sort of that business where you're that entity between the manufacturers and the resellers, and you essentially act as an agent for them to buy stock en masse, so you can provide sharper pricing and better support for the end resellers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the way, distribution works, a very cash heavy, cash hungry business.
Yep.
You're buying thousands and thousands of particular product and putting in the warehouse. And I remember Matt and I used to literally go down to the warehouse, and we would unpack the containers with the warehouse guys and go, man, I don't know how we're going to turn this couple boxes into $1,000.
Yeah.
You're putting it on the shelf. But it did eventually happen.
Yeah.
But you are buying in bulk, you're getting a better price, and then you're distributing that to our reseller community, our partner community, who are then selling it to the end user.
Yep.
When we started in our distribution journey, the focus for us was to maintain a very much a UC niche.
Yep.
So we wanted to stay in that UC space. We didn't want to try and get into the networking space. We didn't want to try and get into PCs or PC peripherals. We wanted to be very specialist in what we did, and we wanted to do it very, very well. So we focused predominantly on the UC space and distributing that particular type of product very well.
Yeah. Okay.
And over that course of sort of from 2019 to 2022, we put a lot of effort into our systems. We
Yep.
put a lot of effort into our online experience for partners.
Yeah.
My view on it back then was that buying a phone or a headset from us should be the same experience as you would if you were shopping with Iconic or anything like that. It should be quick, easy, seamless,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and arriving within a couple of days.
Yeah.
So we
Cool.
try to develop that type of experience from our distribution for our distribution customers.
Yeah, and so when resellers are purchasing hardware from yourselves, was it typically customer by customer, or do they typically also look to try and buy some stock en masse
Yeah,
from you guys
both.
first? Both.
Yeah, so we had a lot of partners who would buy in bulk from us,
Hmm.
and then they would get bulk discounts.
Yep.
So
Makes sense.
they would buy in bulk, but you'd have a lot of partners who would they would just transact daily on whatever they required.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So Media Distribution was running at the same time you sort of started Channel UC in stealth mode. Is that
Yeah,
is
that's
that right?
right. Yeah. So Channel UC we started sort of as a side business to Mia Distribution.
Yep.
So Channel UC basically started because the South African entity in 2018, they were the distributor of Samsung PABXs,
Okay.
and Samsung was exiting the market.
Yes.
So they needed to find another source of revenue, and they were moving to the cloud.
Mhm.
And so they found a business in France that developed a hosted PBX that they wanted access to.
Yep.
And so in 2018, as a group, we all launched the same hosted PBX to
Gotcha.
market.
Okay.
And Channel UC started as a separate entity.
Yep.
So as not to be any conflict with Mia.
Yep.
And we started that hosted PBX business through there, and that's essentially how Channel UC started.
Yeah, sure. So what were you looking to take advantage of, or like what was the key driver of starting that business?
Yeah.
There were a few other PBX cloud players at that point, including Access4.
Yeah.
What was the main kind of differentiation you were sort of
Yeah.
targeting?
So a few things. The one was we were looking at the number of devices that we would distribute from our warehouse.
Yep.
At any one stage during the month, we were selling around 26,000 Yealink phones a month.
Wow.
So to me, I was looking at that going, that's potential of 26,000 licenses a month.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was a big draw card for us to look at doing something like this. The other side of it was that we wanted to develop an annuity-based business that could fund our distribution business.
Yep.
And the second component was that the South African entity were the majority shareholders, so they sort of also led us down that path. So there were a few reasons on how and why we did it. And then there was a big demand from our partner community asking us whether we had a hosted PBX, whether we could deliver SIP services, whether we were doing anything in Microsoft Teams. So they were driving demand back to us. And at a very similar time, Broadsoft, when we launched this, Broadsoft sold their business to Cisco.
Yep.
And we had a lot of partners who we were doing all the professional services or the provisioning of their phones on the Broadworks platform, who were now starting to look for alternatives. And so one of those partners, we launched what we call Eclipse UC to them, and that's what also helped kickstart our hosted PBX.
Yeah, cool.
UC side.
So you sold Mia then to Blue Chip.
Yeah.
And then you decided to run with Channel UC as a standalone business.
Yeah.
What was the sort of decision making there in terms of, you just sold a much larger business? Were you just seeing that Channel UC, the potential it had was a lot larger than a distribution business, or what was the decision making there?
I think one was I'd had enough of the distribution game.
Sure.
So I wanted to do something different.
Yep.
And we had Channel UC there. It was a bit of a dormant business. We weren't focusing on it because Mia took up all of our time and attention and our funding. So when I got the opportunity to move into the Channel UC side of the business full time, we had a core group of partners who were procuring from us. We had a really solid platform, and we thought we could take it to a pretty significant level, particularly with our knowledge of the channel, the history that we've had in the channel, the partners that knew us and would trust us when we launch a particular product. So it's turned into something that we were quite excited about being able to do.
Yeah. So tell me about product development with Channel UC, because me knowing now after the acquisition about all your products, especially on the CCaaS side and what you guys are doing with AI, how are you looking to differentiate yourself from other PBX cloud players? Was it focusing a bit more on the CCaaS side of
Yeah.
things?
Yeah, so I think when I moved over in October 2022 to Channel UC full time,
Yep.
we sort of started doing an analysis of the market and where we sat as a business versus where, you know, an Access4 or all the other types of competitors sat.
Yep.
Our view on where we sat was we were very late to market, obviously, and we would require a lot of resources and funding to get our hosted telephony business to a scale that we needed it to be at. So we looked at, right, we'll continue and maintain that business.
Yep.
But our focus for the first 18 months was around building value-add services, so the wraparound services, which could be bolted onto any underlying telephony, any Microsoft Teams. CCaaS became something that we focused on because there was a lot of partners wanting it, and they would come across opportunities, but they had no idea how to deliver it.
Yes. Okay.
And they would come back to us almost as a trusted advisor and ask us how do we do this? We've got this opportunity for 100 contact center seats, but we don't know how to do it. So we actually invested in a professional services arm of 5 people who deliver the contact center solution on behalf of our partner, everything from pre-sales, post-sales, scope of works, user acceptance testing, even to end user support if the partner required it. So we focus heavily on that side of the business. And then our view too on the wraparound services was that if you're selling, you know, just a hosted PBX with SIP, or if you're just selling Microsoft Teams, there's a lot of competition. A lot of people are doing that. But if you start putting wraparound services around it, from contact center to CRM to call recording to UCaaS, CCaaS, all of the components, you become exceptionally sticky to that partner. That partner becomes sticky to their customer. Their share of the customer's wallet grows exponentially. Their margin goes up exponentially. And so for us, that was a move that we were very focused on.
Yeah, cool. So it must have been exciting in those first few years running a new business standalone for the first time. Like, what were the key challenges that you were sort of facing now, other than the market dynamics you sort of spoke about? I imagine there would have been a whole other slew of things you had to deal with.
There was a lot of differences. One, getting your head out of the hardware game took a little bit of a challenge. We go from selling huge amounts of physical items to selling software. It's a big change. I think, you know, a lot of our partners have probably done that too, with Access4, with us, with other people, going from selling traditional phone systems where they make $10,000 up front to selling an annuity-based sale. It's getting your head around it. It takes a bit of time.
And a different business model entirely.
Completely different.
Cash flow and everything else.
Exactly, But once it does start to ramp up, it becomes something that is exceptionally enjoyable to see grow. Plus, it's very comforting because you have this sort of nest egg behind you of annuity. And it gives you a lot of opportunities to do different stuff with the business. So that was one component I had to try and get my head around. The other component was just getting to understand the business as a whole, like what we were selling, who we were buying it from. You know, we spent sort of the first 3 to 4 months consolidating suppliers, vendors, looking for new vendors, like all our wraparound services, and actually just trying to adopt a strategy. So we took 6 people over from mere distribution with us, and then in the 18 months grew the team to 22. So we were moving in the right direction in terms of the product set that we had, the partners that we were going after, the market that we were going after.
Cool. And then Tim and Scott came knocking on your door. So tell me about that sort of journey. And you know, you were pretty new business still, right? Only running as a standalone business for a few years. You had you had a bunch of partners on board. You were innovating in terms of product. What led you down the road to thinking that now's the right time to sell the business and merge with another?
So I think timing wise, it probably we weren't ready for sale. I mean, we'd only been going for 18 months or even less when we started talking to Tim and Scott. So for us, we weren't quite ready for sale. But I think as any entrepreneur, if you've started a business, I think most of us start a business that eventually one day we'd like to get to a point where it's something that we can either sell or merge or start acquiring, either one. So it was something in the back of our mind, but definitely not so early.
Mm-hmm.
But we had been supplying Access4 since Access4 started
Yeah, from the Mia days. Yeah.
the very first time I met Tim was with Roy.
Yep.
And yeah, we sold them, I think it was 6,000 or 7,000 Polycom phones, our first ever deal. So I
Yep.
thought, yeah, these guys they have something that we want to be a part of. And yeah, so we supplied them for a long time, had a great history with them,
Mm-hmm.
had a very good relationship with Tim. And him and I have a great rapport. So when he came with Scott, I thought, as we got chatting a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
I think they saw what we were doing, we saw what you guys were doing, and there was a very natural alignment of culture, of people, of business.
Yep.
The crossover. There was only 4 partners that out of our almost 200 partners that are buying from us versus your
Yep.
400 that were buying from us, and they were only buying contact center.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's a product that Access4 didn't have until now.
Yep.
So for us, that was a very natural synergy there right away. So,
yeah, cool. So, Tim talks a lot about better together and what we can now sort of deliver for the entire combined partner base that we have now. I guess what's your sort of thinking when you're going into the acquisition originally in terms of the knock-on benefits for your partners, and then moving forward as well? What's your sort of vision for what you want to do with Access4?
Yeah. So I think the better together is something that we all came up with because we truly believe it is a better together story. I think if you look at our 2 businesses combined now, not only do our partners benefit from all the experience that our team bring from an industry standpoint into the Access4 business, but our partners now also benefit from, SaaSBOSS, which was one of the main driving forces for us too. We were trying to build a SaaSBOSS equivalent, but if you consider how long it's taken for SaaSBOSS to get to where it is today versus where we had only started 18 months ago, it would have taken us another 5 years and a huge amount of investment to get there.
That's it.
I think that component is definitely a better together for us to our partners. And then the expertise that we bring from the wraparound services and the components of business that Access4 don't have, but we're looking to source, that creates a better together story straight away. And I think too, from a people point of view, culturally, we all aligned really, really well. And I think that creates a very strong business as you move forward for our partner community.
Yeah, I'm excited. And all the channel UC staff are coming over to Access4, or now are fully into Access4, and means we've got we've got an office in Sydney now. So as someone that's from Sydney, I'm excited about that. I'm going to have to take my pitch back, I think.
100%. Yeah, you come work from the local office.
Yeah, that's it. So one of the things I'm most excited about from a product perspective is the sort of investments and the work that you guys have been doing in the AI space, especially directly in relation to telephony and phone systems. So what's your sort of what are you sort of seeing coming up from that perspective? A lot of people talk about AI and how it's going to change the world and everything, but you guys have a very clear value proposition specifically in terms of how it can enable better customer experience and everything else via these unified communication systems. What are you sort of looking at, and how do you think it's going to most, or what do you think the biggest impact is going to be, especially for the customers of our resellers?
Yeah. So I think at the partner conference, I was saying Elon Musk said you can either be a passenger or participant. And we're firmly on the participant side. We're not a passenger in sort of anything that we try and do in our business life. So AI, everyone's talking about it. It's on everyone's website. Whether someone's actually doing something tangible with it or not is irrelevant. It's there, and you've got to be able to talk about it. We wanted to go that step further and not only talk about it, but actually show it in action. Being a sort of smaller, nimble business, we have 5 developers, and they were working on an AI strategy for us from the very start. And so we've got an AI bot called Dave, who we launched at the partner conference. So at the moment, Dave is answering all of our frontline calls on our IVR and triaging certain components of that call. We're now building it into our OSS BSS from an implementation point of view. So instead of manually typing anything into what our equivalent of SaaSBOSS is, you're talking to Dave and Dave is building it. And then the next component of that will start to be building out certain call flows, auto attendance, basically the system that you're ordering from us, whether it's UCaaS, CCaaS, any of the CRMs, any sort of call recording solutions, any solution that you're buying from our joint entity now. We want to start seeing that rolling out with Dave.
Yeah, cool. So in the practical application of that, that's going to help partners build call flows. It's going to power IVRs.
Correct.
And all those other pieces. So do you think the main impact is going to be more so on the customer experience, or it's going to be about the speed and efficiency of provisioning systems?
Both, yeah. So we're doing the first component is sort of trying to make our partners' lives as easy as possible when procuring from us. So how quick can we make their procurement from us rather than someone manually typing anything? And it could even be, entering a deal in the system that partners might not necessarily want to do, because that's another system for them to learn, and that's another component of management they've got to have. So Dave could essentially do something like that. But from a provisioning point of view, definitely something we are after. And then on the other side of it, we see Dave helping already in our ticketing system. So if a partner calls in for support, they enter in a code so that we identify them as being part of that business. So not anyone can just dial in. And then from there, they are taken through their last tickets, who they spoke to, whether they want to speak to that person again. Dave will then start bringing in all of our knowledge base. So have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried X, Y, and Z? And eventually then, you get through if you want to talk to someone, or if Dave hasn't been able to help. But I think that is something that we are looking at, even from an end user perspective too. I think the way that we sell contact centers now from a per seat perspective will change too, based on AI. We're seeing a lot of AI bots out there. We're seeing a lot of web chat. We're seeing a lot of different interaction with an AI bot. And so currently, you sell maybe 10 agents and 10 licenses per that. But I think eventually it's going to move into a model where we're selling an AI bot that is going to be doing a lot of that front end work to start with, and then moving into an agent at the back for a more complex type of question.
So it'll be less agents required in a CCaaS environment as the uptake and sophistication of AI increases, because they'll deal with a lot of the frontline sort of work and triaging calls and then directing them to the right agent, with the right experience, at the right time, all that, right?
And the right skill set to deal with a particular complex type of question or solution that Dave or whoever it may be doesn't know how to answer.
Wow, okay. And who named Dave? I'm hoping you didn't ask the AI to name itself, because that's,
No, I think just before the conference, Aaron and I were shooting the breeze. And Dave just came about.
Dave was just the one name we don't have a staff member for in the business, so we thought
we don't have one.
Dave.
So Dave.
I don't think we have a Dave, so there you go. No, cool. So now, after the acquisition, you've sort of embedded yourself in the Access4 business. You've joined the executive team in a COO role. So what's your sort of mandate for Access4, moving forward over the next 12 months, but then into the future as well? Because you've got a number of different teams reporting into you now, but there's also the transition and, the different migrations that are going to happen over the years. So what's your sort of focus moving into the next 12 months and then beyond that as well?
So the initial focus is definitely around ensuring that our partners, from a Channel UC perspective, understand the Better Together story. So why we did it and why it's going to benefit them. And then from an Access4 community point of view, for them to understand the same reasoning from the Channel UC into Access4. So that, from a very short-term perspective, is what we're focused on as a business. And then it's really around the midterm is, integrating into the different teams that are now reporting in, understanding how they work within this business, and what sort of advice or help that I can generate to them. And then long term is we've got a plan as a business to get to a certain component and expand internationally and deliver SaaS Boss to a global community. And I think that's something I'm exceptionally excited about, is being able to deliver SaaS Boss globally along with some of our core vendors. And so that's something coming up very shortly that we're excited about.
Yeah, cool. Good stuff. All right. Well, I think we've gotten through everything we wanted to run through today. So really appreciate the time. For anyone who's out there who's listening and wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, they for those who don't know me, they can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Or they can shoot me an email on my email addresses, or they can give me a call on my mobile, or ring into the office and have a chat to me.
Have a chat with Dave first, and
Have a
then
chat to
with
Dave, and
yourself.
he'll transfer directly to me.
Yeah, cool. All right, thanks a lot. So we'll see you around the office, and have a good one.
Thank you.